Exposed, the incredible 17-year-old girl's life-changing speech that shredded Ivy League pride. The town hall buzzed like a swarm of bees, the air thick with whispered conversations and an undercurrent of expectation. In the center of it all stood 17-year-old Maya, nerves knotting her stomach as she prepared to unleash her truth. This wasn't just any speech, this would turn the small town of Maplewood upside down. Everyone knew her name, from the local diner's waitress to the retired veterans who sat in rocking chairs on porches, yet few understood the weight of the dreams she carried. Maya had grown up in a world colored by struggle. Her mother, a fierce single parent, worked day and night, while her brother, Alex, wrestled with their father's war-induced shadows. The scars ran deep, and each day felt like a fight against more than just circumstance. "You have to chase what you want, Maya," her mom often said, wiping sweat from her brow. But dreams were seen as luxuries they couldn't afford, especially for a girl like her. When the local guidance counselor told her there was little chance she'd make it into an Ivy League school, her heart sank. "Kids like you don't get in," he said with a dismissive wave. Those words ignited a fire within her. Who decided what was possible? Fueled by the resilience of her community, she made a choice. This was her moment to speak out, not just for herself, but for all of them. As the town hall meeting approached, Maya rallied her neighbors, igniting a spirit of unity amongst the local business owners, the factory workers, and the single parents who hustled to survive. They all felt invisible, overlooked in a town that applauded status over struggle. Together, they shared stories under the stars, crafting a powerful narrative that linked their hearts. "We're more than our bank accounts," Maya proclaimed. But as the big night loomed, whispers started to shift, misinformation swirled, threatening the message she so desperately wanted to share. Maya searched for her brother each day, hoping to bridge that painful gap. The unspoken hurt of their relationship felt heavier than the podium she prepared to stand behind. What if he felt abandoned by her ambitions? When she finally stepped onto the stage, the crowd's hum faded. She could feel sweat bead on her brow. Their faces' curiosity, judgment, something deeper reflected back at her. Closing her eyes for a moment, she found her voice. "You think success only comes from privilege, but I stand before you as proof that grit creates opportunity." Maya's words poured out, each one a reflection of perseverance that transcended wealth. Just then, a familiar face broke through the crowd, Alex. He emerged from the shadows, joining her as they stood side by side, embodying unity, their shared past balancing on the knife's edge of hope. They faced the audience together, hearts pounding, as they tackled the truths that defined their lives. "We are not defined by how much money we have, but by the size of our dreams." The applause erupted, mixed with murmurs of disbelief and confusion. But as the doubt trickled through the air, one question lingered heavily: could one speech dismantle years of social barriers? Would this night lead them towards bridging the divide, or would the old guard of privilege continue to reign? Maya felt the weight of change resting on her shoulders, a flicker of hope igniting alongside the uncertainty as she stood ready to fight for her dreams and for those she loved. Maya stood on stage, adrenaline coursing through her veins, the echoes of her words still resonating in the air. She had poured out her heart, but the journey was only beginning. As the applause wrapped around her like a warm blanket, she caught Alex's eye. A silent moment passed between them, layers of unspoken emotion swirling in the space, their shared struggles flashing behind their eyes. But as the crowd began to disperse, she noticed the faces of some local leaders twist into frowns. The gravity of the evening's true impact weighed heavily on her. Maya felt an unexpected anxiety crawl up her spine. Had she truly moved them? Or had she simply reignited the embers of a long-buried disdain? The uncertainty gnawed at her just as fiercely as her dreams did. After the meeting, Maya searched for her mother, who stood chatting with neighbors, pride radiating from every pore. But deep down, Maya could sense her mother's worry. Without saying a word, she felt the unasked question hanging between them: what now? "Mom," she called, her voice slightly hoarse from the intensity of the speech. They stepped aside, away from the crowd, where the din of the remaining conversations faded into a distant hum. "You did so well, honey. I'm so proud of you," her mom replied, her smile bright but filtered through a mask of concern. "But what's next? What if they don't support you after all this?" Maya stared at the ground, doodling aimlessly with her foot on a patch of dirt. She had no clear answer. "I don't know, Mom. I just wanted to make them see us." Behind Maya, Alex shifted from foot to foot, the weight of his own thoughts heavy upon him. There was a tension born of the past they shared. She turned to him, searching for reassurance. "You came," she said softly, recognizing that his presence was more meaningful than words could express. "Of course I did. You're my sister." His voice was steady, but vulnerability flickered in his eyes. "But this is big. Are you ready for what comes next?" Maya held her breath, feeling the pressure of unending choices looming in front of her. "I want to be. I want the town to change. I want people to believe that they can dream, like us." "Beliefs can be stubborn," Alex muttered, glancing over at a small group of familiar faces in the corner, their expressions still etched in disbelief. He was scared, unsure of how the community where they had grown up would react. In that moment, Maya tentatively placed her hand on his. "We won't do this alone. I'll find a way to make them listen, even if they don't want to." His brow furrowed. "But what if they push back? What if they don't want to hear what you have to say?" Maya shrugged, determination igniting within her. "Then we just have to be louder. We're here, Alex. We're not going anywhere. We're part of this town, just like everyone else." As she spoke, Maya felt their mother's hand gently rest on her shoulder, her warmth grounding. "You are both part of something bigger. Remaining voiceless isn't an option anymore." Just then, a commotion erupted behind them, a few voices rising above the others, angry tones slicing through the hope that had filled the air moments earlier. A group of parents from the local high school had gathered, their conversation full of accusation and fear. Maya's heart raced. This wasn't just a speech anymore, it was a call to arms. The challenges ahead were daunting, but they now stood as a family with a purpose. "Let us prepare ourselves, okay?" Alex said, a steely look crossing his face. "We need each other more than ever." With her brother's words echoing in her mind, Maya squared her shoulders, ready to face whatever turmoil lay ahead. Because this was just the beginning, and the change she fought for wasn't merely a dream. It was a rallying cry. As they stepped towards the chaos, a single thought resonated: how far would they truly go to claim their place in the world? Maya took a deep breath, her heart hammering in her chest as they approached the gathering. The air crackled with tension, sharp enough to cut. Faces were twisted in anger, some visibly shaking, while others had a look of concern painted on their features. She could hear snippets of their conversations, words like threat and divisive floated like dark clouds. "What if they don't understand?" she whispered to Alex, her voice barely audible above the rising tide of anger. Alex's eyes were fierce. "Then we make them understand. We fight for our future." The words hung in the air, a flicker of hope among the chaos. But uncertainty crept into Maya's mind. What if she was fighting a losing battle? Still, there was no turning back. She had opened the door, now, she had to walk through it, no matter how dimly lit it appeared. As they reached the group, Maya felt the sudden weight of all those eyes. Fear morphed into anxiety as she clenched her fists. With her family flanking her, she knew she needed to be strong, not just for herself but for everyone watching. The sharpest voice cut through the murmurings. "What you said tonight was reckless. You don't know what this community stands for." It was a woman, someone from the school board, standing at the forefront of the crowd. Her arms were crossed tightly, eyes narrowed. Maya straightened. "I know what it's like to feel invisible. I know what it's like to feel like dreams are just dreams. My speech, it wasn't to attack anyone, it was to inspire action." Another voice chimed in, heavy with skepticism. Inspiring? Or stirring trouble? We've kept things comfortable for years, and now you want to change everything? Why should we trust you, a kid? With every word, Maya's resolve hardened. She shifted her posture, her voice rising as her passion swelled within her. Because it's our town too. We all have a stake in what happens here. You say we're kids, but some of us are carrying heavy burdens. Why can't we dream of something better together? The crowd fell silent for a second, absorbing the weight of her words. Maya's heart raced. She knew she was stepping into a minefield of prejudices and fears, but now was her chance to speak truth into existence. Just as she gathered the courage to say more, a voice shouted from the back. Enough. It was Mr. Johnson, the high school principal, who had always advocated for the status quo. There are ways to go about change. This isn't it. Maya felt the wind knocked out of her. Had she really crossed a line no one should dare? The thought sent a chill down her spine, but then she felt Alex squeeze her hand tighter, grounding her. No. She shouted back, her voice unwavering. Change doesn't come from doing nothing. We're scared, yes, but we also have dreams that are worth fighting for. The system isn't perfect. It can't be if we're being told to stay silent. Her words hung in the air, and for a brief moment, she could see the walls around the crowd begin to shift. She held her breath, uncertain what might come next, while people exchanged glances filled with conflicting emotions: fear, agreement, confusion. Then it happened, a middle-aged man began to clap slowly, almost hesitantly, but soon the sound echoed and multiplied. Others hesitated, then joined in. Maya blinked, her heart leaping as she stood in the midst of something shifting. Hope sparked, igniting a fire that crackled with possibility. But then she froze as a dark shadow slipped into her periphery. It was a familiar face: Juliet, the leader of the parents' group, storming towards her with fury burning in her eyes. What do you think you're doing? She spat, fists clenched. Maya's stomach churned, and in that instant, she realized more than words were at stake. Everything she stood for was about to be challenged again. Would she crumble, or would she rise? The question lingered in the air, charged with raw energy, as Juliet approached, and Maya's breath caught in her throat. How was she supposed to defend against the very system she longed to change? Maya, you need to stop this madness. Juliet's voice was like ice, slicing through the warmth that had begun to bubble among the crowd. The cheers were fading, replaced by a new tension, an electric mix of anxiety and curiosity. Maya forced herself to meet Juliet's gaze, the whirlpool of emotions threatening to pull her down. I'm not mad, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. I'm just trying to show that we can make a difference. We can face our fears together. Juliet's grip on her anger seemed to tighten. You're just playing with fire. You don't see the risks: what happens if you push too hard? You'll ruin everything. Maya's family shifted uneasily behind her, and she felt their support, but also their concern. Suddenly, it all felt overwhelming. Would fighting for change mean tearing her community apart? Or could it build something stronger? Juliet, we've been silent for too long. Don't you see? This isn't just about me. People are hurting. We're stuck in a cycle where no one gets to speak. With every word, she could feel her voice gaining strength. What's the point of comfort when it's built on fear? We need to stop accepting the world as it is and start imagining the world as it could be. The crowd shifted slightly, and some murmurs returned, a mix of agreement and defiance. Maya held on to that thread of hope, willing to tug at it. But Juliet stepped into the space between them, arms folded tight, a wall of resistance. You think you're the only one with dreams? We all have them. But sometimes, wisdom means knowing when to hold back. We have a good community. Let us not risk it for idealism. Maya's heart hammered in her chest. She wanted to scream that change was painful but necessary. The silence around her was deafening, and she felt her legs tremble. Would her message break the fragile bonds holding them together? She locked eyes with Alex. His eyebrows were raised, a silent encouragement. He stepped closer, saying softly, "This isn't about them versus us. It's about us growing together. Stand tall. You can do this." Maya nodded, pulling on that strength as she turned back to Juliet. "I respect your fear. We all have it. But we owe it to ourselves to at least try to reach for so much more. There can be change and unity." Juliet's expression shifted briefly, just enough for Maya to see a flicker of vulnerability. But then it vanished, replaced by something harder. What happens when you realize this is too much? When it falls apart? She shot back, her voice rising, drawing more attention. Maya paused. But what if it doesn't? What if this is the moment we stand together and finally say we deserve a chance? We can make mistakes, but we'll learn. Isn't that the essence of a community? She could feel the uncertainty simmering, the shift of emotions in the crowd. Some were nodding, others still locked in their fear. And then, out of nowhere, a voice in the crowd broke through. It was a woman's, shaky and hesitant at first. "I have seen my son struggle with dreams he feels he can never reach," she said, her voice gaining momentum. "Maya's right. We need to allow them to fight for their futures. Let them speak. Let them change." That triggered a ripple. People glanced at one another, whispers of yes began to rise, swelling like a tide. Maya's heart raced. Could it be? Would they really support change? Would Juliet let the community embrace a new vision? But Juliet's expression grew harder than before. "This is a dangerous path, Maya. And if you keep going down it, you might just find yourself alone." With those final words, Juliet turned on her heel, storming back into the crowd like a storm cloud, determined to regroup her followers. Maya's pulse quickened. She had drawn a line in the sand, but would they now stand with her or retreat back into the shadows of their comfort? She turned to face the crowd, heart pounding, as dozens of eyes searched for answers. Fear mingled with hopeful anticipation, as she wondered. Was she ready to be the leader they needed? Because in that moment, she knew more was at stake than just a speech. Everything, the future of her community, was hanging in the balance. Would they take the leap with her? Or would they choose to retreat into the safety of silence? The question hung heavy in the air as she took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. Maya took a breath, her chest rising as she scanned the faces in front of her. The tension was palpable, each heartbeat echoing in her ears. 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind, doubts, fears, hopes. She focused back on the crowd, remembering why she was here. This was bigger than her. This was about every child dreaming of a bright future, every voice silenced by fear. "Let us talk." She called out, her words breaking through the silence. "Let us share our stories." The crowd began to stir, voices snatching at those words. Conversations erupted, sparking in corners. Alex stepped beside her, his presence a grounding force. "They need to feel we're united, that we're all in this together," he whispered. Maya nodded. She focused on the energy bubbling up around her. A man stepped forward, his face worn but determined. "I lost my job last year. It feels like hope slipped through my fingers. How can we change what's happening out there?" His vulnerability opened a door. More stepped forward. People began to share their stories of struggle, of fear, of wishing for a chance to be heard. A young girl, no older than 10, shyly raised her hand. "I just want to know it's okay to dream, that I can be someone." Her words fell like starlight in the night, illuminating the shadows that lurked in that space. Maya looked around and realized there were eyes filled with hope, eyes searching for connection. The fears began to morph into something else, a collective determination. Maya raised her voice again, stronger this time. "That's what I want too. We should all be allowed to dream and reach for the stars, no matter where we come from." This is our chance to fight for each other and for the dreams we hold close. The crowd erupted, voices merging into a singular roar of agreement. People began to clap, enthusiasm swelling like a wave. But amongst the cheers was a familiar silhouette. It was Juliet, and she was back, flanked by a few followers, her arms crossed defiantly. Maya's pulse quickened. Juliet. We want to find a way together. This isn't about drawing lines. This is about building bridges. Juliet's lips pressed together, her expression revealing nothing, neither acceptance nor rejection. You think you can just rally this crowd into chaos? She shouted, cutting through the rising tide of exuberance. This will end in tears. People will get hurt. Maya felt her stomach churn. But what if it's worth it? What if we can rewrite the story together? A story where fear doesn't bind us. The crowd hesitated, caught in the push and pull of persuasion and fear. Questions tugged at the edges of their minds. Could they challenge the status quo? Then, an elder from the back spoke up, frail but firm. I've seen too many young people crushed under the weight of our silence. If we don't stand for something now, what future are we building? His voice resonated, grounding the crowd. Maya felt like someone had lit a spark within her. If we remain silent, nothing will change. It's time to challenge the old ways. We can be a voice for one another. Now, doubts shifted into hope. She could see it in the glimmers of understanding reflected in their eyes. One by one, people began to raise their voices, unleashing feelings like pent-up springtime rain, suddenly and beautifully alive. Let us work together. This has to change. We deserve better. But through the whirlwind of emotions, Juliet remained resolute. She shook her head, her expression tight. If you push too far, you'll lose everything, she warned. Maya's heart dropped. Was she really risking it all? The moment felt fragile, poised on the edge of something monumental. Suddenly, from the edge of the square, a familiar figure emerged. It was Maya's father, stepping out from the crowd. Her heart leaped into her throat. What would he say? Would he understand? As he approached, she felt both fear and hope intertwine. Could he support her? Or would he mirror Juliet's worries? Maya stood there, the weight of the world resting on her shoulders, the crowd's gaze heavy with expectation. What would he reveal? Would he ignite the fire or extinguish it? Her breath hitched, the answer seemed to waver just out of reach, like a dream caught in the dawn's first light. Maya's father stopped in front of her, his eyes searching her face. For a moment, everything else faded. The noise of the crowd, the tension in the air, and even Juliet's challenges seemed distant. All Maya could see was the man who had always been her rock, now standing there with uncertainty etched on his brow. Dad, she whispered, her voice barely breaking through the cacophony around them. He scanned the crowd, then locked eyes with her again. I came as soon as I heard, he said, his voice steady but filled with concern. Are you sure about this? Maya felt her heart race. A million memories flashed in her mind, moments of his optimism, the warmth of his support when she needed it most. I have to be. We can't stay silent. These people need to know they're not alone. His expression softened, but doubt still lingered. What if this goes too far, Maya? What if voices turn to anger? I've seen how quickly things can spiral. Then we'll face it together, she replied, her courage rising. The only way to create change is to take risks. This isn't just about me, it's about all of us. Her father's face tightened, yet there was a flicker of pride in his eyes. You're brave, Maya. Just remember that change often comes with a price. That simple acknowledgement sent a wave of determination through her. She stepped back, turning slightly to face the crowd, raising her voice above the murmurs. Everyone. She called, desperate to reclaim the moment. I know there's fear. I feel it too. But we stand here united, don't we? Each of us has a reason to fight. The crowd responded, their voices rising in a chorus of agreement. But in the back, Juliet crossed her arms tighter, her skeptical gaze sharp. And what happens when unity turns to chaos? You think your voices can heal divisions? They can rip apart too. Maya took a deep breath, holding Juliet's gaze. That's exactly why we need to speak up. Together, we have the power to change fear into hope. But we can't do it if we let ourselves be silenced. That's what they want us to do. Fear only wins when we allow it. Are you willing to lose everything to fight for what you believe in? Juliet shot back, an edge in her tone. Yes. Maya almost shouted, surprising herself with the ferocity of her own response. Because if we stay quiet, what are we even protecting? A future built on despair. Her father shifted slightly, pride blooming within him as a few heads nodded and murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Others stepped up, voices mingling, creating a growing chorus of support around her. Then let us be the voices. A woman called out, stepping forward. Let us not just talk, let us show them our strength. Maya felt hope surge as she took it all in the spark in the crowd, and the realization that they had strength in their shared experiences. But her heart still raced at the weight of her father's words. What if she really was risking everything? As that thought settled in her mind, the youthful voices chimed around her, stronger, louder. Yet, nestled in that joy was an echo of fear, a shadow that clouded the brilliance of their hope. Together, Maya cried again, her conviction firm. Together, we are unstoppable. The crowd exploded with applause, energy igniting like fireworks across the night. She turned back to her father, needing his affirmation, but she saw him standing in awe, conflicting emotions playing across his face. Suddenly, in the distance, sirens blared. The crowd froze, looks of worry and confusion rippling through the throng. Maya's heart dropped again. Were they here to silence their voices? Dad, what if she began, fear creeping into her voice. But before she could finish, her father stepped forward, shielding her from the unexpected chaos. Stay close, he urged, his brows furrowed. We'll figure this out together. Just as uncertainty crept in, the crowd began to whisper and move, creating a buzz of apprehension and anticipation. Maya felt adrenaline coursing through her veins. What was coming next? Would this bold step forward lead them into deeper shadows, or would they find the light? As the sirens drew closer, everyone's eyes were glued to the horizon, fear mingling with a potent sense of unity. Maya gripped her father's hand tighter. What would happen next? The moment hung heavy in the air, the line between chaos and courage crumpling like paper. Would they emerge stronger, or would voices of fear stifle their resolve once again? The answer loomed, just out of reach, sparking more questions than ever before. The sirens wailed louder, slicing through the tension like a blade. Maya's heart thudded in her chest, each beat echoing her fears. She could see the flashing lights in the distance, growing closer, menacing shadows cutting through the unity she had spent so much time trying to build. Stay calm, her father whispered, his voice steady despite the frantic energy surrounding them. His hand squeezed hers reassuringly, yet uncertainty lurked behind his eyes. What if they don't understand? Maya murmured, eyes darting towards the oncoming vehicles. She thought of the assembled crowd, the hopeful faces now shadowed with anxiety. Would this be the moment they crumbled? Then we make them see, he replied, conviction lacing his tone. Your voice matters. Don't let fear silence you. Maya took a deep breath, drawing in whatever courage she could muster. She turned back to the crowd, her heart racing. Listen. We've come together to make a statement, and no sirens or flashing lights can take that away from us. We're here to demand change. Some in the crowd began to chant, change. 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 The energy shifted, thick with determination, drowning out the sirens momentarily. Yet in her chest, a nagging worry still twisted. What if they came to disperse them? What if her words pushed too hard against the world they were trying to change? Suddenly, a group of uniformed officers emerged from the vehicles, their faces stern and unreadable. The sight sent a ripple of dread through the mass of people. They were clearly there to address the gathering, and Maya felt her heart sink, the weight of that gaze upon her as dozens of eyes turned to the figures advancing. Everyone needs to disperse. This is an unlawful assembly. One officer shouted, his voice booming over the crowd. A few gasps punctuated the air. Maya felt the worry spiral into the pit of her stomach. "We can't let this happen," she whispered, confusion and fear wrestling inside her. "What do we do now?" Those in the front pulled back slightly, worried glances exchanged. But the woman from earlier stepped forward, her eyes fierce. "We are not going anywhere. We have a right to be here, to speak our truths." Maya's heart swelled at this show of courage, yet doubt still itched at her mind. Could they really hold their ground? Would the officers resort to force? "Together, remember what we were fighting for," she called, pulling from the base of her heart. For every voice silenced. For every story unheard. Her words seemed to resonate, igniting a flame of determination within the crowd again. "We are done being ignored." Others shouted, voices united, no longer soft whispers. But the officers maintained their stance, firm and unwavering. One of them stepped forward, holding up his hands. "We only want to ensure everyone's safety. Violence won't solve anything." Maya's throat tightened. "We want peace. We want to discuss, not fight," she called, her voice breaking through the tension, hoping to reach the essence of the fear in front of her. "We just want to be heard." The officer paused, brow furrowing as he assessed the crowd, searching for the leader. Maya met his gaze, a silent plea in her eyes. Together she breathed, rallying her thoughts. "We are a community. We stand for each other." The crowd began to chant her words back at her, burgeoning strength building anew. But in the depth of each heartbeat, Maya felt a truth press heavily. What if this escalated beyond words? What if they couldn't find common ground? As she stood there, surrounded by voices and sirens, doubt flickered. Would her fight lead to understanding or a deeper divide? The tension crackled in the air as the officer took a step closer, and Maya braced herself. Would he listen? Or would this be the moment it all fell apart? The answer felt more crucial than ever. A heartbeat away from either breakthrough or breakdown. What would happen next? Strength unite them, or would they be forced to back down? Maya stood frozen, the thrumming of her heart barely keeping pace with the rising tension. The officer, a tall man with hard, focused eyes, surveyed the crowd, tension etched into his features. She felt her father's grip tightening on her hand, a blend of anxiety and support flooding their connection. "Please," she urged, stepping forward slightly, "let's talk this out. We're not here to fight." His gaze remained impassive, but a spark of something curiosity, perhaps flickered across his face. "What are you hoping to accomplish here?" His tone softened just a fraction. Maya took in a shaky breath, her voice growing steadier. "We want to be a part of the change. We want our voices to matter. We want a dialogue about the issues we face every day." Behind her, the crowd hung on her words like anchors in a storm, waiting for their leader to chart the course forward. Maya glanced back at them, feeling their collective energy, their hopes radiating like waves. The officer pondered her words, the tension in his shoulders relaxing just slightly. "And what makes you think your voices haven't been heard?" Maya sensed a crack in his armor. This was her moment. Because we've been silent for too long. We've seen what happens when we stay quiet. Decisions are made without us, for us. We want a seat at that table." As the crowd began to nod and murmur in agreement, she felt a rush of adrenaline. These were her people, their struggles resonating in her heart. "And what if I told you, you're not the only ones who feel silenced?" The officer's demeanor shifted, revealing hints of empathy. Her mind raced, this was a doorway to the opening they needed. Then let us work together. This isn't just about us. It's time we all address the issues like injustice, inequality, and the future we want. His stance softened further, and a whisper of hope floated through the air. Still, the caution loomed. What if this escalates? We can't risk safety. Maya took a step forward, her emotions surging. Safety begins with understanding. If we don't start talking, we'll never bridge the gap. A murmur ran through the crowd, a collective breath shared. Some began to chant, "We won, T back down. We won, T back down." Maya felt a surge of conviction swell inside her. Let them hear us. Our voices matter. The officer's expression faltered. She saw him wrestle with the weight of his duty against the growing strength of her words, the crowd urging him on. All right, he finally spoke, his voice strained yet open. Let us see how we can address your concerns. A wave of relief washed over her. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Maya couldn't help a small smile breaking through her tension. But as they began negotiating, the sound of footsteps echoed behind them. A larger group of officers arrived, their presence commanding, the crowd's energy faltering immediately. Her heart dropped. Would they sweep in and dismantle everything she had just built? Gathering her thoughts, she shouted over the crowd, "Stay strong. Don't let fear divide us." The new officers exchanged wary glances, gauging the situation. She could see it now in their eyes, the same fear, the same uncertainty, but with a hint of underlying respect for the crowd that wouldn't back down. Let us not lose this moment, she urged, her heart pounding in her chest. It's our chance to bring real change. As the tension hung thick, uncertain of what would unfold next, Maya stood at the center of it all, a bridge between two worlds, fighting for understanding and connection. Would they take her hand, or would this chance slip away? The moment felt poised on a knife's edge, ready to tip. She could feel the weight of anticipation pressing in. Would this mark the beginning of something new, or would it all crumble again, before they could even take their first step? The air crackled with unease as Maya stood firm, her heart racing with every uncertain glance cast her way. The crowd felt like an extension of her own heartbeat, pulsing with a mix of fear, hope, and defiance. Each person's eyes told a story, and the weight of their aspirations rested heavily on her shoulders. The officer at her side, now caught between the resolve of the people and the rigid protocols of his position, cleared his throat. Okay, but I need to hear your specific concerns. Not just the big ideas. We can't address what we don't understand. Maya nodded vigorously, her mind racing to lay out their frustrations in a way that would resonate. We want safe schools, equitable access to resources, respect from those entrusted to protect us. We want to be involved in decisions affecting our lives. The officer frowned but also nodded, maybe even a bit reluctantly, like he was beginning to see grains of truth in her words. The second group of officers loomed behind him, arms folded, grim faces overshadowing the initial breakthrough. They felt like shadowy figures on the periphery, threatening to swallow this flicker of hope whole. Isn't this a conversation worth having? Maya continued, pushing against her own deepening anxiety. It's just the start, but it's better than ignoring the problems. Don't we all want a better future? The crowd erupted into another round of chanting, "Change now! Change now!" And it reverberated through the air like a battle cry. A raw, infectious energy surged through Maya. She could feel it, a collective yearning to matter, to make a mark and to be part of a legacy they could proudly claim. But just as she felt the tide turning, the new officers stepped forward. "This is getting out of control," one declared, his voice harsh and unyielding. "We're here to maintain order. If you don't disperse, we'll have to take action." Maya's stomach twisted. "No. We're not causing trouble. We just want to be heard." She looked back at her father, who raised an eyebrow, encouraging her with a silent nod. "Everyone should be afraid when their rights are at stake," she cried, passion igniting her words. Fear shouldn't silence us. We deserve to share our experiences and confront the truth. Our truths. Maya couldn't back down now. The gamble for dialogue had to work. Lives hung in the balance, wrapped in the chaos of the moment. Would they listen, or would they choke off the conversation like they had done so many times before? The officer remained still, wrestling with the visible discomfort on his face. Behind him, the other officers stood motionless, the tension drowning out any rational conversation. They seemed to sense that something monumental was teetering on the edge, the realization that change could be upon them if they dared to step forward. Do you understand what this is about? She pressed, meeting the officer's eyes directly. This isn't just rhetoric. We are fighting for our lives, for a future that isn't dictated by fear and misunderstanding. At that, the officer stepped forward. Listen. I've heard your concerns, but we need to figure out a method to channel this without the threat of unrest. Hope sparked anew in Maya, a small flicker of light in the overwhelming gloom. We're not here to cause unrest. Just the opposite. She countered, desperation mingling with resolve. They could cry loudest for change, but without their willingness to understand each other, it was all for naught. But as the officers began to deliberate amongst themselves, a low rumble came from the crowd. It grew stronger and louder, like a storm building over the horizon. More than just a chant now, it was a call to arms. And in that moment, Maya realized, they could either bridge the gap together or let it widen into a chasm. Was the officer ready to take the leap with them? Just then, a figure stepped into the light, someone Maya recognized, someone she never expected to see. The very person that could tip the balance from potential threat to undeniable hope. Maya, the newcomer called, urgency dripping from their voice, you need to hear this. Suddenly, everything felt poised on another knife's edge, and her heart raced as she awaited the revelation that could shift everything. What would it mean for them all? The crowd simmered, uncertainty hanging in the air thick as fog. Maya's heart raced as she turned to face the unexpected speaker, her former principal, Ms. Carter. The tension melted around her as she saw the familiar face, a beacon of respect in the community. Ms. Carter, Maya breathed, both surprised and relieved. I've seen what you're doing, and it's important. You've started something here, Ms. Carter said, her clear voice rising above the murmurs. But we need a solid way to channel this energy. Together, we can create change, but we must do it cooperatively. What do you mean? Maya asked, her pulse racing. Could this be the breakthrough they needed? I envision a town hall forum. A place where everyone can express their views openly, without the fear of retaliation, Ms. Carter explained, her eyes scanning the crowd. But it must be organized. It must involve dialogue, not chaos. A wave of hope washed over Maya. Yes. We can work together. Let us bring all voices to the table, young and old, parents, and children, all of us. The crowd buzzed with excitement, rallying behind her words. The first officer hesitated, his resolve softening. Consider this an opportunity for dialogue, but I can't promise safety unless we find common ground, he said, looking to both Ms. Carter and Maya, uncertainty written on his face. Maya nodded emphatically. That's all we're asking. Let this be the beginning of a conversation, not just an end to it. Let us face our fears together, head on. It was a rallying cry, a bridge to the possibility of real change. Somewhere within the crowd, Juliet's fierce expression morphed. The energy was palpable, it pulsed, drawing everyone in. Slowly, she stepped forward, and Maya held her breath. You're still risking a lot, you know, Juliet asserted, sounding more contemplative than combative. But if Ms. Carter supports this, maybe there's something to it. Exactly, Maya replied, bravery swelling inside her. Let us reclaim our narratives. Let us write a future where everyone has a say. We must trust in one another, and that has to start now. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Maya could see it, nay, feel it in the flickers of realization washing over the faces. This wasn't just her fight anymore. This was theirs, the officers exchanged wary glances, clearly caught off guard by the shift. One stepped closer, a hint of respect blooming in his posture. "All right, we'll hold off. But I suggest you gather your thoughts and plan this forum carefully. There are a lot of strong emotions at play." Maya smiled, tears threatening to spill over. "Thank you. We will show you how much this matters. Together, we'll craft a proposal." At that moment, Alex stepped forward, a fire igniting in his eyes. "We need to be accountable too. We have to approach this with respect, even for those who oppose us. That's the only way to build lasting bridges." Maya squeezed her brother's hand, feeling the strength of his support behind her. The ground felt steadier beneath them, a string tying them to the hope flaring in their hearts. The crowd erupted in applause, an outpouring of relief, joy, and shared purpose. Maya gazed at them, awe swelling in her chest. These were the people who had stood beside her, who had met fear with determination, and who were ready to embrace change. As the sirens faded in the distance, they gathered their plans, fueled by the promise of a new future. Each voice would matter, every concern would be validated. They would forge their path, stepping into uncertainty but united by the very dreams that had once felt out of reach. That night, strengthened by their promise to each other, they stood under a vast sky, hearts filled with dreams and determination. The journey wouldn't be easy, but they would face it together. Maya turned to her father, emotions bubbling as she whispered, "We did it. We really did it." His pride shining in his eyes, he replied softly, "This is just the beginning." And it was. The promise of hope and change swayed like a beacon of light before them, illuminating the road ahead, a road built on voices. Once silenced, now ringing out strong and clear. Maya could see their future sparkling, where dreams were not merely dreams, but stepping stones towards lives lived fully. Now was their time. And as they stepped into their new beginning, one thing was clear: it was a life worth fighting for. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. And for goodness sake, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.